Hi, everyone. Louise here with the First Lady of Nutrition podcast. And today I have an old friend and an absolutely brilliant researcher, Dr. Barrie Tan, who is well hailed as a trailblazer and the world's foremost expert on an underlooked and ignored vitamin, which is vitamin E. He, in fact, is credited with discovering tocotrienols in three major natural sources: the palm, the rice, and the annatto. He's a scientist first and foremost and earned his PhD in chemistry in New Zealand, and he spent several years as a professor at the U of Mass. Now, today, Dr. Tan focuses his research on a lipid-soluble nutrients that reduce and slow chronic conditions. His mission, as he told me off camera, is to deliver the highest quality nutritional products based on sound research, which will help people live longer, live fuller, and live healthier lives. So good day to you, Dr. Barrie Tan.
Hi, and this is a long time coming, and we have met each other so far back I don't remember, and I always remember you as a person very strong in nutrition. So I'm really glad to be on your show and speaking about this special vitamin E today.
Well, we're delighted to have you here because you're such an expert and so brilliant in your research. Now, you know, vitamin E has always been my favorite vitamin, but it doesn't receive a lot of credit these days. When I was very young, Barrie, I'm from the East Coast, as you may remember. I grew up in Connecticut, and I worked in a health food store. And the most popular vitamin that people came in to talk about and to inquire about, this was back in the 70s, was vitamin E. I had clients, I had customers that were coming in for vitamin E to solve all of their heart issues. They'd been to see the Shoot brothers up there in Canada. Now, in this day and age, people go into a health food store and don't even know what vitamin E is. So can you explain why vitamin E is so important?
Yes, I will. And I also know why it dipped out. At one point in the 70s, it was very hot favorite. And then a lot of clinical trials were put on in the 80s and 90s. And when they were published towards the end of 90s and 2000, most of it didn't pan out. So people just gave up the ghost on vitamin E. And I started my career at University of Massachusetts in the early 80s. And then I stumbled onto this palm fruit that have this special vitamin E. I did not know that. And then when I did, I found, oh, this is not the normal vitamin E, tocopherol that people talked about. That set my stage to study this lesser known vitamin E, not the popular tocopherol and the lesser known tocotrienol. So that was it in the early 1982, 83, those years.
So you mentioned the tocotrienol. My audience may not be familiar with that. Can you explain, is that a different type of vitamin E, or is it an aspect of vitamin E? Is it typically found in stores these days? Give us a little background.
Okay, now when people go to a store to buy vitamin E, they would find alpha tocopherol, the same alpha tocopherol you find on a cereal box. And that's the one that was done study on, and it didn't work. But it was the first known, so it's known for a long time. Tocotrienol was discovered in the 1960s. Then you fast forward 1980s, University of Wisconsin started to do research on it. Their interest then was to figure out if tocotrienol would reduce cholesterol. I did not know them initially, I knew them later. Then I started in UMass working on palm oil to extract the vitamin E. In fact, I discovered that, hey, you have 3-4 peaks. And then I emailed the funding agency in Malaysia to say, oh, that's alpha tocopherol vitamin E. And I said, oh, there will be only 1 peak, but I found 2, 3 more. So, and then I was not happy with just that trite answer. So when I looked, I discovered that there were tocotrienol. So then now to your question, what is tocotrienol? If you think of a cartoonic picture of a vitamin E, they look like a tadpole, like a sperm, like a big head, and then a tail. And then the head is the antioxidant part. The tail snugged right into the phospholipid. We can cover that on the cell wall later. And then the tail of a tocopherol is longer and saturated. The tail of a tocotrienol is shorter and unsaturated. the triene 3 double bond, and the saturated tail longer on tocopherol stays on the cell membrane. And if I wanted to make it very explicit for the audience sake, how then is one better than the other? Simple. This is research was done in the early 1970s at UC Berkeley. So that at the time, they noticed that before they did the work, they noticed that the tocotrienol simply was 50 times more potent. It's almost an unbelievable number. They need to know an answer. So what they did was they put a tocopherol onto a cell wall. Just think of a cell like a bean shape, and then the phospholipid around it. And then the tocopherol would move around the whole bean, trying to capture free radical from oxygen. It moves around, say, at 5 miles an hour to capture oxygen radical. When you put in a tocotrienol, the tail is shorter. So it spins around like, for argument's sake, 500 miles an hour. So therefore, is able to trap oxygen radical 500 compared to 100 times faster. But they did many studies, and it's about 50 times faster. That's it. And then that was published. And of course, that came after I got into tocotrienol. I was very excited. Then I started to do different study, taking advantage of the fact that this lesser known vitamin E is significantly more potent than the plain vanilla vitamin E.
So what was the plain vanilla vitamin E made from in the old days? Was it soy mainly?
Yes, if they're natural, then it would be soy. If they're synthetic, then it's petrochemical based. That's even worse. And so,
Very worse.
and for natural one, there are the three sources like your introduction say. So far, I've spent the last 30 years looking. You can only find significant amount from palm, from rice, and then from Anato.
So you take so tell me about Anato. Is that where you're getting your tocotrienols from?
Yes, and people hear the word Annatto, you probably find it if you go to a Whole Food or health food store. If you buy a half pound, quarter pound of cheese, you look on the back, it'll say that they'll add Annatto color. It's a natural carotenoid color, giving it the orange, the yellowish orangey hue. So this Annatto is not a strange plant. It's a plant that we use for everything like that. About 23 years ago, I know you don't have a question. I just throw in because it was just such a beautiful story. It's an epiphany. It's not something I meant to go to South America to do. I was looking for lutein, macular degeneration, and all that. I went there and I found my giant marigold plant, which have lutein, but fate has it, literally 20, 30 feet away from me, is this Anato plant. I wasn't there to look for this, Emily. I saw this plant and I was very fascinated. It looked beautiful. The pots looked beautiful. And then I said, hey, let me figure out, isn't that color Bixin, which is the color that they put on cheese? Well, carotenoids are inherently very unstable, even more unstable than omega-3 fish oil. Then I said, whoa, there must be some powerful antioxidant that protect it. I have no idea it was going to be a vitamin E, even lesser understanding if we were tocotrienol, probably a polyphenol, something like that. So I took it home and then first I was surprised. It was a vitamin E. Second, I was even more surprised that it contained tocotrienol. And third, I was most surprised it's completely free of tocopherol and only contained the two most potent vitamin E, the delta tocotrienol and gamma tocotrienol. And then since by that time, I've had already started to work on tocotrienol, I said, I think this is the fate of my life. I should really go after this Anato tocotrienol. And that's exactly what we have been doing and I have been doing for the last 20 over years here.
So can you combine all these various types of vitamin E? We talked about the tocotrienols that you've just beautifully explained and the tocopherols. Do they all go together biochemistry wise?
I initially have thought of that they would work together biochemically. And then in 1997, my colleague in University of Wisconsin decided to do animal studies. He said, Barrie, I add the two to two together, 1 + 1 did not add up to 2. That is one thing. But he said, but when I add one, meaning tocopherol and tocotrienol added together, but when I add 1 + 1, is less than 2. So it's not synergism or additive, it's less than 2. So wait a minute, if it's less than 2, please figure it out. Now, oftentimes in nature, things are synergistic, but every so often, like 5-10%, they're antagonistic. Precisely what they did was it was antagonistic, meaning to say, when alpha tocopherol is added with tocotrienol given to the animal, the alpha tocopherol preferentially grab the rite of passage through to the extent that the tocotrienol was not even absorbed. And when they were absorbed, the tocotrienol is blocked from its function to do what it was supposed to do. And after that, once we knew that, we never add the two together. And then now, I did not have to do anything more because in the Anato, it is naturally tocopherol free. It just contains tocotrienol, and there are no any other natural sources that I'm aware of that have a tocopherol-free tocotrienol.
Huh. So why would people take, I'm a practitioner, a health practitioner. Why would I recommend a tocotrienol to one of my clients? What would be the conditions? What would be the conditions that would merit the use of a tocotrienol supplementation? And you've written about cellular degradation being at the root of chronic health conditions. But my point is, what particular ones would this call for?
Okay, so I won't answer the question as to the benefit of cellular health. Now, over the last 2-3 decades, sometimes things come slower, but the benefit of it is many people have published many papers on it. So when I analyze the papers, it come across to me as this, that tocotrienol works best in chronic condition. So now, what are some examples of chronic condition? Initially, it was lipidemia. That was the very first clinical trial we did, and it worked to lower lipid, triglyceride, for people who have metabolic syndrome, cholesterol, for people who have arteriosclerosis. We got it. We published that about 5-10 years ago. And then you fast forward a little bit, there were like 70% or 80% of the published paper in animal study. Every time when I look, it has to do with cancer. Then I said, well, how am I going to do cancer study? I won't be allowed by the FDA, but I decided that, I've given my this is more the passionate side of me coming out. I've given my entire life to study this. I don't even care if FDA allow me to make the claim. If this is going to work on so many animal study, I need to do clinical trial. And I'm very proud to communicate to you and to your audience that we now have 7 to 8 outstanding clinical trials on people with cancer. And most of them are on women with cancer. Would you like me to tell you the cancer that we are studying?
Oh, absolutely. So is this an ongoing trial, or these are results that have already been published?
The result for the ovarian cancer is out. And I'll tell you in a moment what those are. And of the 4 or 5 cancers we're studying are ovarian cancer, breast cancer, of course, these are women cancers. And then for men and women would be lung, colon, and pancreas. So those are the 5 cancers. So isn't that, and then now on the ovarian cancer, this is a short answer to this. We use stage 4 cancer patients. So it's actually, and so this is a pretty heart-wrenching because there are no more options. And
correct.
So the standard of care is to use Avastin, which is anti-angiogenic drug to cut the feeding tubes that feed the tumor. And then even with that, after 6 months, most of them were not surviving because these are stage 4. Then the other group is Avastin plus tocotrienol, our natural tocotrienol that we made. So like that, they call it medicine. We're not allowed to call it medicine here, but it's the same thing. So they were given 900 milligram, 300 milligram per soft gel taken 3 times a day with a meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner, like that. Very simple, nothing complicated. And then about 60-70% still survive after 1 year. And after 24 months, 2 years, 25% of them still surviving. Now, if this were to be a drug, yes, it is true. They did not survive. But you know, we started the study with stage 4 trial. There are no available option, and 25% still surviving. That is published. It was published last year, and this year and next we're anxiously waiting for all the other trials to finish, and we could not talk about them until they're published. So, but I'm hopeful. The other ones would be, what did I say? Colon, lung, and breast cancer.
Pancreas and
And pancreas.
pancreas and lung. So that leads me, I'm going to divert just a little bit. You know, we're still in the midst of this pandemic and people are so concerned about lung health. Would this be a helpful supplement in preventing any type of lung infection, let's say?
Yeah, thank you for digressing. This is a great digression thing. I, you know, we're all hunkering down because of this, and the pandemic thing is, you know, sometimes you're at home and then you're at work, but you're not seeing other. It's very unusual time, and you and I have never experienced this because neither you and I were born during the Spanish flu time. You know, when there was a large, major, big thing like that.
Thank
We
God,
quite
correct.
unbelievable to be so. So I started to revisit, I truly did. I started to revisit what do I know of any published studies that ever was published with tocotrienol and some kind of a lung distress, not necessarily a virus or COVID or something. What with then I decided to look, and this is my conclusion. It may sound like I am reading, but this is with intent because this is what I know. I don't want to miss anything in communicating with your
Sure,
audience.
go right
So,
ahead.
okay. Now, in lung distress is a major component of COVID because the virus entered the alveolar sac, and then it caused distress. And if it's not fixed, then they have to use respirator. As you know, 1 in 5 people who get to the respirator stage will make it out. And then they have a phrase that describes this COVID. It's called SARS, SARS. It is a functional term attached to the virus. It simply stands for severe acute respiratory syndrome. That's it. Exactly as I read it, just to classify this communicable disease. Then I said, well, the studies that we have with tocotrienol is not SARS. It's non-communicable because we were studying people with COPD and asthma. Then I said, wait a minute. But when they describe this non-communicable disease of a COPD and asthma, they have another term, not SARS, it's ARDS. It's simply acronymized for acute respiratory distress syndrome. Then I thought, hey, severe acute respiratory syndrome for SARS and acute respiratory distress syndrome, boy, functionally, they all sound the same to me, even though the origin one is communicable disease and the other one isn't. Then I got really excited. I went to read the study, and then they also talk about cytokine storm abatement. So I read closer. Now, this is the exciting part. Yes, it was an animal study. We're trying to figure out how to do a clinical trial on this, but right now, everybody is so many things on COVID, so they're not quite ready to do this. But in the animal study, this is what they found. They found that the white blood cell infiltration, the air sac thickness of the alveolar sac, and the mucus hypersecretion, and the ability to inhale and exhale, all these things. So the white blood cell drop, and the air sac thickness drop, the mucus hypersecretion drop, and the ability to inhale and exhale increase. Now, only the first one I'll mention that. Why is it of importance that the white blood cell infiltration drop? That behind that is the cytokine storm. First, you have this cytokine surge up because the bug has got into you. So immediately a signal to the white blood cell, you got to go to the lung. You got to go to the lung because the virus is there. That's all good. So now this white blood cell, neutrophil in other words, they zoom into the alveolar sac. That is good. The intention is to kill the bug. So no problem with that. However, our body don't know how to stop. They just almost like calling the artillery. They came and then they keep coming and then keep coming. So the next thing is the lung is inundated with white blood cell, and then the person can breathe. That's it. That is a cytokine storm. So when they put tocotrienol in animal study, they're able to inhibit the white blood cell. It didn't stop. If you stop the white blood cell, then the white blood cell is not there to kill the virus or the bacteria or the whatever in place. So this study been done. So then the take-home message would be simply this: if someone were to take 300 to 500 milligram tocotrienol, at least I'm doing that. So whether I'm glad that I don't have test positive for COVID, but at least I protect my lung so that in any likelihood they'll be good. But the application, so that I'll be honest with it, was initially done for people with asthma and COPD, and it helped them. So
Mm.
then if somebody were to be COVID challenged or approximating to that, this cannot be something that would be doing the opposite. You're doing positively for them. So thank you for the chance for discussing this.
So would you say that the tocotrienols also help with oxygen delivery? Because I've heard that this particular COVID-19 may also affect oxygen delivery.
Yes, the oxygen delivery thing has something to do with the mucous membrane. The mucous membrane is the ability when the neutrophil comes in, the neutrophil surrounds the COVID virus. So when it does, then the mucous membrane is formed. So then the oxygen part comes in because if the alveolar sac, that means the breathing part, the oxygen carbon dioxide exchange, if there's too much mucus there, then the oxygen and CO2 cannot exchange properly. So it's not only that they need more oxygen, there's one component. You also require that the mucus is not laden there, because if the mucus is laden there, then the CO2 and the O2 cannot exchange properly. So they are basically pathologically asphyxiating even though you have oxygen. So this removal of mucus is a very important factor.
Mm. So we're finding, at least we're learning from you, Dr. Tan, that number one, that the tocotrienols are very helpful in various types of heart conditions. Am I correct?
Yes, heart condition. When the heart condition because of arteriosclerosis, and then what did I say? And then also it's good for the other chronic condition like metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is a broad cluster, so we decided to zone in on the metabolic syndrome on people with fatty liver disease.
Yeah, which is fascinating. So how does this work with, is it the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, NAFLD?
Yes, we are studying that. And of course, the audience may or may not know, it was only 1982 when this was discovered by Mayo Clinic, when a person had a fatty liver and the doctor asked the patient, are you drinking a lot of alcohol? And then the patient said, no, I'm not an alcohol drinker at all. And to which the doctor was getting a little bit indignant because the liver tissue looked like they're cirrhotic. And so assuming that the patient is lying or something. And then the patient said, no, I'm not. So eventually he wrote a piece that said that these days a way to get the cirrhotic liver, they have nothing to do. And hence the disease is so lengthily called and clumsily called non-alcohol fatty liver disease. So we are studying that. So I'll give you the shorthand of the study. Very exciting. We did a 3-month study, double-blind, placebo-controlled. And then we essentially see that the fatty liver index, they scan the liver, the fat is reduced by 11%. We also did the study for 6 months, an independent study like that. The fatty liver index reduced by 16%. Each of these patients take about 600 milligrams. Now, and then the C-reactive protein, I just give it to you the shorthand answer, the C-reactive protein dropped, so the inflammation to the liver. Now, most people understand the C-reactive protein is a measurement of inflammation, but I don't know if everybody is aware or know this. The C-reactive protein is a protein. It's a stress protein made. That's why it tells us if we are inflamed or not. But many people do not know that C-reactive protein is actually produced by the liver. So therefore, now not only is it inflammation, now we are studying the inflammation of the liver. So this is as good as it's going to get. So the CRP drop. And then to the patient, we also found out from them, we did not set up the experiment to study this, and it's very easy for them to know themselves. And that after 3 months, now these are overweight people because of the dietary matters. After 3 months, they lost 10 pounds. And after 6 months, they lost 17 pounds. Even though there was not a design of the paper, remember, weight loss is usually 1 or 2 weeks. And I usually stay clear away from that. But you know, if a person have fatty liver and overweight, losing 10 and 17 pounds over 3 months to 6 months, that's nothing to sneeze at. That's a very positive sign. So and because of that, before I give the back to you, we're so convinced of this, and we decided to do a 12-month study. So now it's the same study, same amount. So there's no dose dependent, just time dependent. This time we're going to do CAT scan. So we will know precisely inflammation in the liver. God willing, if this thing goes through, we should be able to apply and request the FDA for a structure function claim, because we will, at that time, we will have 3 independent studies, 1 of 3, 1 of 6, 1 of 3, 6, and now with a 12-month study. So if we can clearly hone in on this, then tocotrienol should be allowed as a way to mitigate chronic condition of the liver when it is fatty.
Which is marvelous. So you've given us a possible treatment for some of these diseases that people have so much fear over, whether it's pancreatic cancer, lung cancer, breast cancer, ovarian cancer. Now you're talking about fatty liver disease. It makes me wonder whether there are any applications for this in terms of prevention. Does this particular substance have any anti-aging benefits?
Okay, now we're circling back to the question that we skipped to get straight to what chronic condition. The picture I wanted to paint for the audience, to a normal, healthy audience, is this. I don't know how many people talk like this, but sometimes I like to make it simple. In every human body, whether we are 100 pounds or 150 pounds or something like that, we have about 38 trillion cells. Now that's a big number. So if you size it down, it's approximately 5,000 times the population of the earth. Every human body has 38 trillion cells. Now a cell looks like a bean. It is covered with cell walls all around, and the cell wall is essentially fat. Now, I know the word antioxidant is used like mad by a lot of people, and it becomes trite because everybody say that. I will help you to screen the grass off the shaft on this. Very easy to do it. The primary usage that I care about when I use the word antioxidant is lipid antioxidant. Why do I say that? If there is a roadkill on an animal on a summer day, or you put a stick of butter on a summer day out, and then you smell the rancid thing, it is not the protein, it is not the DNA, it is not the mineral, even though they can get oxidized. The first thing they smell of is the fat. I can 100% assure you. When you throw the fish away because you stick in the refrigerator for too long, it's the fat that gives you the fishy smell. When the meat that is not cooked, it's, oh man, I forgot to cook the meat, and then it turned bad, that off smell is the fat. So that to say, the first thing that get oxidized are the fatty tissue. So when it comes to the human application, I'm also trying to be very simplistic. All the cell wall are fat. And in the 1980s, there was a famous Austrian professor. He decided to do the test nobody wanted to do. What exactly are all the important antioxidants in the human cell? Nobody asked that question, but he decided to do it. Would you believe it? 90% of those antioxidants in the cell wall, which means protecting the fat, they are vitamin E. The remaining 10% is the thousands and thousands of other antioxidants, but they protect the body, but they don't go into they won't go into the lipid cell wall. So therefore, it's okay. So the vitamin E are the molecule. And then earlier on in the show, I explained that a tocotrienol is able to spin around the cell 50 times faster. So now, if you add all two and two together, if you want to protect your cell wall for a normal, healthy person, not otherwise sick, not otherwise have any chronic condition, I would say that to take somewhere between 100 to 200 milligrams to do nothing else but to protect your cell wall of the 38 trillion cell from oxidation damage, because we need oxygen to live. One in every 10,000 oxygen we breathe is going to go out of whack and turn raw. When they turn raw, that's when you need the vitamin E to capture that radical so it would not damage your cell wall. I hope I make that clear.
Yes, it's very clear. So so for preventative purposes, you're saying 100 to 200 IUs, yes?
That is correct. 1 to 200 milligrams. The FDA then now don't allow the usage of IU anymore, just the actual milligram weight. So yes, about 1 to 200 milligrams for a healthy individual who is otherwise have no disposition to any chronic conditions.
Okay, so, but for those that have a chronic condition, how much would you recommend?
Okay, I would say for people who have mild chronic condition, probably double that. So 200 to 400 like that. And then for people who have advanced chronic conditions, such as the study on the cancer I mentioned to you, then they will need more like 400 to 600. Now the 400 to 600, even though they're on the higher dose, they need to have a load up phase because vitamin E is lipid soluble. If they take it on the first month or two, the load up phase, and then they can dial down after that, like we do with CoQ10, because they're very lipid soluble. There's a load up phase, and then you dial down later. But if I were to be a cancer survivor, I would just take 400 to 500 and just stay at that. For example, I am about 125 pounds. I'm in my 60s. I do have a genetic hypercholesterolemia, nothing to do with my food. My liver overproduced cholesterol. So I take 300 milligrams a day with a meal.
I was going to ask you why you're taking so many without prodding too much. So that's easily explained. But my question is, I don't necessarily see the tocotrienols available in the stores. So where do we get the one that's made from Anato?
Oh, thank you. If it is made from Anato too, some companies who make it, first you should buy only from Anato, because palm and rice contain 25 to 50% alpha tocopherol, and then those are the bad guys that put the brakes on the function of tocotrienol we discussed earlier. So you want it only on Anato, but if you care further, then you can. Our trade name is called Delta Gold. Some company put it in, some company don't, like that. And by the way, American River, our company, is the only company in the US that make tocotrienol and only natural sources. We don't use anything else, just purely physical means to extract them. If you ever come by this way on a Western Mass, you can come and see our facility. So a respected company that I recommend people to go to is a company called Designs, for plural, Designs for Health. And if you're a health professional, you can go straight to their website to do that. If not, Design for Health also sell them on Amazon. So I think that they simply call it Annatto E. That's their product, just like that.
Annatto E. I want everybody to remember that. So you've answered that question for me. And I know that you have a book called The Truth About Vitamin E, which has been long awaited for. How do my listening audience get a copy of your book?
Thank you for asking. I know this book is a labor of love, and most of the books that I wrote, they are scientific symposium series, but people have asked me, can you put in simple terms? And then I decided to do that. I did not the book with all kinds of scientific jargon. I reference it in the end. So if people wanted to go search, they can do. So the book is written for easy read. And we did it free. So you can download the whole book. So if you come to my website, barrietan.com, and Barrie is spelled a little bit with affectation, Barrie, tan.com. And then since you hear it from the First Lady of Nutrition here, you could just type First Lady, and then you can download the copy of the book. If your audience would prefer to have a hard copy, you send me an email, and I'd be glad to send you an autographed copy. It's about 60, 70 pages, easy read on that.
How lovely. Thank you so much. But my next question is going to be our final question, because we're coming to the end of our very informative, enlightening interview with you. But I truly wonder, what is next up for Barrie Tan? What's on the horizon?
Thank you. I'm always been fascinated with things of nature, Dr. Gittleman, and because plant makes them and they don't speak to you. So we have to go look and search for them. I discovered a compound from a plant, and the compound is a lengthy spelling. It's called geranyl. I'll spell it out: GERANYL, GERANIOL. I just acronized it to GG. I found out that this compound, it is required in the human body. The simple answer is required in the body to make protein. So when we go older and have sarcopenia, it helps. It is also required for the synthesis of CoQ10. The entire molecule of GG is in CoQ10. The entire molecule of GG is also in manoquinol. Most people know MK7, which is produced in the gut. But most people do not know manoquinol 4 is the most abundant vitamin K in the body, and the body uses normal vitamin K1, K, and GG to make MK4 inside the body, not in the gut. So it's not by fermentation. So therefore, GG is required for this too. So I just thought, wow, this is a real endogenous nutrient, and I discovered this compound. So we're trying to figure out how to help people in muscle growth, retention of muscle as you grow old. And of course, if someone were to take statin drug, or women who are taking bisphosphonate to prevent calcium loss, they stifle the ability of the body to make a GG. That is the reason why people have myopathy, not because their CoQ10 dropped. The CoQ10 is required to be made by GG. So the real reason behind CoQ10 drop is because of GG. And studies have shown again and again that when people take statin drug and a myopathy, the singular reason is because the GG drop. I would love when this thing comes, you can do an interview on me on the GG, because that is highly relevant.
You know, I'm writing a new book called Radical Longevity, and the sarcopenia, which is so underreported, is a real problem as we grow older. So muscle wasting is a problem out there that we have very few natural solutions for. So I definitely will be in touch, Dr. Barrie Tan.
Oh, well, thank you so much. So I'm glad that our hour disappeared so fast. So this is a thrill and a delight. I hope that this information will be highly useful to your vast audience that follow you faithfully. So thank you so much.
You're a sweetheart. It's so nice to be able to connect again. And I want to thank you for being my most esteemed guest and colleague today on the First Lady of Nutrition interview. This is Louise Gittleman saying goodbye. Good luck. I'll see you all next time for a next podcast for the First Lady of Nutrition. Goodbye all, and God bless.